Over the past 15 years of playing Minecraft, I have made and played on countless worlds. Some I would abandon after a few minutes, while others I'd continue for days, weeks, months, and on a few occasions, even years. But I've not been continuously active on any other world for anywhere near as long as Oddcraft. Oddcraft is by far my oldest forever world, with others not even coming close. To put in perspective, Oddcraft I've been playing since 2014, or for over 11 years. Put that in perspective, my other forever world, Desert Survival, has only been operational for a little over 3 years. And that seemed to have been going on forever in of itself. And with only one reset, all of those builds on Oddcraft, or at least most of them, have stayed the same and well preserved within my claim throughout time. Because of this, my base on Oddcraft is basically a gallery of all of my builds from past to now in the present, and how building styles evolved over time, that sort of stuff, along with carrying many memories and a lot of lore that I'd love to share on this channel. And in this video, I'm going to go in depth about valuables. How much I have of certain things like iron and diamonds, alongside gold and emeralds, alongside certain points in my journey throughout the world, and it was a rocky road. So if you want to hear the full story, make sure to stay to the end to find out how I end. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started. When I first joined the server was nothing like it was now. The richest people then had a fraction of what the average player has now, due to the skill ceiling being way lower at that time. People were struggling a lot more to find diamonds, and overall the game was just harder. Even though it might have not been harder difficulty-wise, like literally like with mobs, it was more difficult due to people being worse. Also, alongside of that, iron and gold were not farmable, or at least it wasn't wide known that they were farmable at that time, and emeralds and villagers were extremely hard to get. So them, you'd actually were better off not worrying about them at all. However, there was one thing the server had back in the day that they did not have now, and that other worlds now have, and that was a shop. A lot of servers, both back then and now, had a system where you can apply for a job, and you can slowly work on it, earning money, and then you can spend that money on valuables. Nowadays, you can only do it on emeralds, and then emeralds you can buy with other things with the traders. And yes, you can also get the same emeralds from villagers and raid farms, but that's not part of this video. But back then, you could buy any valuable. Emeralds, iron, gold, or even diamonds, actually. So because of that, a lot of players have stockpiled on diamonds in much greater quantities than most other survival worlds because of that feature. But me, on the other hand, I was in a bit of a phase. You see, I was 9-10 years old at this time. I was still figuring myself out. And I was like, you know what? You know how to be quirky? Let's just say diamonds suck altogether. The logic was that iron had a lot more uses and crafting recipes and that sort of stuff, so that iron was better. But you can probably see why that logic fails. But because of that, I only bought iron during this period, and because of that, that would end up setting me back a lot long term. But if we go back even further, before this, I discovered a shop. I really didn't do any mining at all, actually. I only really got stone tools and relied off of that and getting more cobblestone with them. I was never really a big fan of mining in particular, although especially when I was like younger, I just didn't really like doing it at all. So I just more or less avoided mining, or what I usually prefer, caving. Due to there not being mending or any other enchantment like that, tools you couldn't really keep forever. And that actually is why stone actually wasn't that bad of a tool type back then. Alongside that, I also used cobblestone to build up my base, and it was just pretty convenient. Although once I started to discover the shop, and the iron started flowing in, I decided to switch to that instead. I ended up upgrading to iron tools, weapons, and armor, and also I've got more stuff like buckets, or flint and steel, or shears, or things which just needed iron anyways. At this point, I was starting to stabilize. I didn't really have any problems with resource gathering or whatever, and I was able to have iron tools pretty consistently. And I was basically, even though I might not have had any diamonds, I was still pretty middle class during that time, as most people tended to avoid using diamond tools. However, all good things must come to an end, because the world ended up corrupting and most of the iron was trapped in there, which is where I found myself in a very peculiar situation. On the new world, I lost almost all my iron. I didn't know what to do, although at the same time, I did have some stone on me and I was able to get some more when constructing a base with my brother. So our first base on the world, we decided to live together in a little cave-like base. It was nothing too big, although because of that, I was able to get stone, and also I didn't use up the durability of my tools very much, so I was able to kind of keep everything I had from the old world with me. However, in a few months, that would change. Still in 2015, when the world reset, my brother and I split apart. We decided to basically build our own bases instead, and we both also decided to build them on the surface rather than underground. And because of that, I needed to do a lot more mining in order to get materials. And that posed a problem because my pickaxe basically evaporated. And same thing with my shovel. My axe stayed for a little longer as I didn't use that much wood, at least for the very start of the base, but that also vaporized eventually as well. And what I was left with? Stone tools again. At the same time, I still didn't mind using stone tools. They were still very consistent, and you could always rely on crafting new ones. However, as I started to completely run out of iron, and I realized I couldn't make things like buckets anymore, I realized there was a problem. So in 2016, I just bit the bullet, and I went mining. From the mining session, even though I wasn't able to get that many diamonds, I still was able to get a decent amount of everything else: redstone, lapis, coal, gold, and most importantly, iron. And I was set back on track for a normal middle-class survival world. I didn't need to worry about mining for a very long time, and that was a good thing, because for the next few years, I especially despised mining. I just really hated it for whatever reason. And because of that, like throughout 2016 and 2019, or even 2020, I almost never went mining. And because of that, and me continuing to be on the surface, improving my base, I gradually ran out of those resources I once got. As 2017 approached, 2018, and then even 2019, my base became bigger, and bigger, but I ended up becoming poorer, and poorer. I started to rely on a cycle where I had to get basic stuff, even things like food, from the community chest. That is why, if you look at gameplay footage from that time, you'll see that I had like end loop gear for like my sword and my axe or whatever. But don't let that fool you. I still had absolutely zero iron, practically zero lapis, and practically zero gold as well. Really, the only thing I still had was redstone and a tiny bit of coal. And this, on the other hand, was not normal for this time. People were able to have mending on their tools, so things like iron and diamonds were much easier to get. And because I didn't do any mining, that wasn't really a thing for me. Because even though I had the tools, I really only used them to build my base. And yes, I'm well aware, the irony was stark, and I would make jokes about this all the time for the next few years. I had such a massive base with so many buildings, it was so well developed, but I didn't even have a single iron ingot. And this extreme poverty, alongside a host of other things, was what encouraged me to take a 4-year break. When I returned back in mid-2023, I was ready to change the world. I was ready to get out of the poverty crisis that has plagued me for the last many years, leading to relative stagnation. So first, I did not waste any more time. I was over the phase of me not wanting to mine, and I went straight to the mines on the resource world to get iron and, of course, diamonds. Although I also liked getting a bit of every other resource as well, even copper. After a few mining trips, I was back on pace. I had diamonds, I had more iron than I had before, basically. Even after all of the buying I did, I had more gold than I ever had before, and also other resources like that as well. I was able to be self-sufficient again. And part of this drive was motivation but also part of it was the skill ceiling. You see, due to SMPs like Hermitcraft and Dream SMP, the skill ceiling has risen a lot since I last played on the server. And because of that, I was able to start again and accelerate like a rocket back to pace. With that newfound wealth, I decided to add more and more onto my base, closing it together with a wall and also just adding more stuff, like farms overall. However, I did not forget about mining either. So I just continued to mine and mine to replenish my resources or to even just get more. And I never had any problems with resources ever again. Although as I started to get more and more diamonds, I ran into another problem. How am I going to use them all? And that's when I bring a resource that I didn't talk about yet at all because it was introduced during the time I was away from Awcraft. And that is netherite. Netherite, if you don't know, is a resource which is even stronger than diamonds. It can be found in the nether, and it's very rare. I could have gone bed blasting to get ancient debris or whatever. Instead, I decided to use one of the shops at spawn in the nether, which traded ancient debris with diamonds. It traded 5 diamonds for debris, which would add up to 20 diamonds for an ingot and 180 diamonds for a block, or almost 3 stacks. I decided to turn all of my existing diamonds, or almost all at least, I kept a few just in case I needed them for stuff, into netherite blocks, and I was able to get 14, which was a stark contrast to what it was before. I was overflowing with wealth at this point. I had no problem whatsoever even getting netherite blocks. It was probably one of the biggest turnarounds I've ever done to a world ever, but I wasn't done yet. I wanted to just challenge myself to see how many netherite blocks I could get. So over time, I decided to do more mining, and even more mining. And at this point, since I had enough of basically every other resource to last me a lifetime, I focused mainly on diamonds. And I've even developed new methods to collect them. The one that I discovered that ended up being my favorite was actually using a night vision potion and mining for diamonds that way. It turned out to be extremely effective and yielded a lot of results. And because of that, that leads to today, where I have 46 netherite blocks, and that number is just going to continue on growing. My base was able to grow massively without resource constraints, and it overall has to have been one of the most successful turnarounds to a world I've ever done. And that's where this video is going to end off. From poor to middle class to poor to middle class again to extremely poor, and now to generations of wealth. My story of valuables on Awcraft has been a very wild ride, and I hope you guys enjoyed going on this ride with me as much as I did. And if you did, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe my channel, and share the video around. I'd gladly appreciate it. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace out.